It's Corso and Catone. Brought to you by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Happy New Year and welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here, pissed off, looking at his phone at the Pro Bowl selection.
Oh, my God.
Joe is with us in the booth. You are watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, 790 The Score. And make sure you send us an email in our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com, or give us a call and heated hotline, 855-313-PATS, P-A-T-S. Message line. Leave us a message 24/7. Joel may pick one if it's clean. You know, clean them up, people. Clean them up. So give us a call. Hey, we got a good one. We're going to go back in the week and Weekly Rewind. We're going to talk just a little bit about that Chargers game, but what it really means globally. You know, GM, owner,
do we
coach.
really have to talk about anything about that game, really?
We do, man. We do, you know. With the Patriots first pick in the draft, right? Anyway, and of course, we're going to hear from Mr. Catone in Catone's comments. Stick around for that. And go B's and C's, Bruins and Celtics. I'm going to talk a little bit about college football playoffs. Those are in full swing going into the semifinals. Notre Dame won, so that's fantastic. We'll talk about that. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, gentlemen.
Happy New Year.
We do have to say, Chris, that it, you know, we do have to say that, you know, it's a shame what happened in New Orleans, and you know, we do get a hearts do go out to those poor families down there. That tragic incident. You know? Yeah,
thoughts and prayers with everybody involved in that situation. I mean, it's
just
definitely horrific. There's not enough words for that.
Nope.
So anything you people can do, get on Red Cross, anything like that to help. Anything that's up, make sure you do that. Happy New Year, guys. How was your?
The silly season is over. Finally. Finally.
It is. Well, Mark, the silly season is over, but it's actually just beginning for the New England Patriots, because the next week or so is going to be electric. Let's just say that. Electric. And it starts with this week's game. But before we get to that, we got to go back and figure out what happened from that point. We're going to do it in Weekly Rewind. Joe?
I'm going back through the week, about a Weekly Rewind.
So, Mark, the way I thought we would do this,
okay,
because the biggest things we want to talk about are, do they lose tomorrow?
Yeah.
Should they clean house? Is Mike Vrabel an option? These are the things we want to talk about. We can do it as it relates to what took place last week. So just in general, I mean, it was a 40-7 loss. I mean, every statistical category you can even think of, imagine. 2 for 10 on third down, 0 for 3 of them.
They got their face kicked in.
In every metric you can even think of, 428 yards allowed. I mean, everything. 40 minutes to 19 time of possession. I mean, you know.
And you know what the kicker was? Your guy had a great game. Your guy. For the Chargers. If anybody listened to our draft coverage from the spring.
Well, Mark, it's disgusting, and we're going to talk about that too. He's talking about Lad McConkey, who had 2 touchdowns, should have had 3. He had more yards. He had more yards receiving in this game than Polk and Baker combined. And that was the draft.
Yeah.
We traded the pick, and we took Polk and Baker to San Diego, and they took LA, and they took McConkey, Mark. Let's talk about the coaches. Let's talk about the coaching first, okay? And I want to hear from Joe while you're queuing up that white. Let me know when it's ready. But we want to hear from Keon White, and we want to hear from Phil Perry after the game on some of this coaching. So let's do that now.
All right.
Realization that just given what the results are this year, major changes are coming?
I mean, yeah, I hope so.
If changes aren't made, then what are we doing? Again, the NFL is a production-based business, so if we're not doing anything to change our production, which is lost, what are we doing?
Yeah, Mike, I just want to share a conversation that I had with Keon White after he met with the horde of reporters. We spoke for about 6 minutes, and I tried to clarify some things with him, including if he meant what he said to Karen Guregian, because Gerard Mayo said during the pregame show on the radio, 98.5 The Sports Hub, that what White said wasn't what he meant. And Keon White tells me after the game, he meant every word. And he meant exactly what he said. And he's not taking any of it back, and he's not walking it back. I asked him if he felt like he was being used properly here in New England and if he could be used in a different way in order for him to have the kind of production that he's hoping to have. And he said, that's not up to him. What he needs to do is he needs to make the changes on his own. He needs to make the fixes on his own. He needs to coach himself.
Coach himself. Coach himself.
What the hell's wrong with him?
So I wanted to play that. Okay.
Yep.
Because just for the purpose of talking about how lost Mayo is in control of this team. Okay, as a head coach. Not only did he have stuff to say, you had Baker tweeting out, or whatever you call it now, talking about that he's the hated man over there. You had Booty saying some things again. Pop Douglas talking about changes need to be. Gerard Mayo, he has no control, Mark. I mean,
No, he's lost control, Chris. He's lost control. Listen,
did he ever have it?
Well, I don't know if he had it, but I think. Well, you know how these player coaches are, Chris. They come in, they're players coaches. They, coming in after Belichick. I think he was the nice guy. All the players liked him, and then after a while, that act runs thin when you're losing. There's no respect. There's no consequences. And we'll get into the fact that there's no consequences a little later when guys are not supposed to be starting. They're starting. We'll get into that.
Well, we can talk about that. We could talk about that with control.
Chris, all you keep hearing though from the local media around here is, well, no, he hasn't lost the locker room. Well, he hasn't lost the locker room. What the hell is all this chatter? He hasn't lost the locker room? Are you kidding me?
Well, if you didn't lose the locker room, I'll bring it up then. If you didn't lose the locker room before, what the hell do you make of telling everybody who's willing to listen, including the pregame show, we're talking to Scott Zolak, where you say Ramondre Stevenson is well, he didn't say he was benched. He just said Gibson's going to start. You got to ride that horse, he said. You got to ride that horse right to the – I don't know what the hell he's talking about, what horse he's talking about. But basically, Stevenson was going to not start the game, was going to be Gibson, and all of a sudden, he even told the guy doing the game.
He did, because they brought that up during the broadcast. Absolutely. And lo and behold, Ramondre Stevenson starts the game.
So
then when he's questioned about it,
just
Chris,
not get through? I mean, what?
But then after the game, he's questioned about it. He said, "Oh, it was a coach's decision." What?
Okay. Coach's decision. Dun, 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 dun. It's like Ringling Brothers. This is what this is. So, okay, so we know he doesn't have any control. He certainly doesn't have control in the media. I don't think he's got any control of his coaches, because one of two things. You either told the coaching staff he's not starting and they did it anyway.
Yeah.
Or the message didn't get through to them, or you had a change of heart because, you don't want to ruffle any feathers. Either way, any of those scenarios, you look terrible. Yeah. To say nothing about game situations. Okay? Game situations, what he's doing coaching-wise on the field. I mean, it just continues. It continues right up to the end. Okay? There's no plan. You're talking about usages of timeout again, 4th and 2, that issue. It's just, Mark, I can't keep saying the same thing over and over again. I mean, I can, but
listen, if you watch the game, Chris, I just want to point out a couple of things. Are we talking about coaching a little bit right now?
Yeah. All right.
I want to point out 2 things. First of all, how is it possible before the game, if you listen to Pat's Nation last Saturday morning. You said, I said, what are they? Who worries you on defense for the Chargers? And you said they're going to count for Derwin James, Mark, because they're going to put him in different positions. He comes from different spots. They're going to bring him from all over the field. You got to count for him. And I said, yeah, you're right. And Mayo made reference to that also.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they couldn't account for him, Chris. He disrupted you all day. And that's the one guy, because Bose has been banged up. You know, he's playing, but he's not 100%. But that's the one guy, Chris, that you mentioned in the Pats Nation. You got to account for him, Mark. And then on the offensive side, our defensive side of the ball, Chris, on their offensive side of the ball, the Chargers kept going to a stack with their wide receivers all game. Covington is in man-to-man and doesn't know they were confused. They just kept running it, and they kept getting guys running wide open. That's how McConkey scores his one of his touchdowns, Chris. Explain what was happening. Because I called you during the game and said, Chris, I don't understand this. This isn't that difficult. Like, what's going on?
Do you want me to talk about the pitch play first or the other one?
Well, start with the pitch, and then you can get into the stack formation by the LA Chargers. Now, we couldn't defend.
You're talking about Derwin James disrupting everything, right?
Yes.
So that pitch play everybody's talking about where the fumble happened, right? And he comes up with it. It's simple. The Patriots were playing. It was a misdirection play. Okay, so they were lined up as if it was going to be a toss sweep to the right. They had Ramondre Stevenson on the right side of May, and it would and all the strength was to that side. Okay, and you had a stack look with Bourne and DeMario Douglas, right? So on the play, Hunter Henry is sitting on the as a wing. He's the only one that goes the opposite way. Everybody else is slanting to the right. Everybody's going to go block to the right. Looks like it's going to be a toss. So basically, nobody's touching James, and he's playing at the end of the line. Okay, so what? They did so many things wrong. First of all, they did it on the hurry. So they ran up to the line to call this play. So they were running it in a hurry up, which is a bad idea on a misdirection play. There was this quick snap count, which is also another bad idea. May is under center, and he has to reverse pivot to do it, which is something he doesn't normally do. You don't account for Derwin James sitting there, and then he tosses the ball in between DeMario Douglas and Ramondre Stevenson, and guess who's sitting there? It's just a poorly constructed play for the situation they were in. Not a bad play. I mean, it was executed horribly, but for the situation they were in, Mark, atrocious. And,
right?
And then on the defense, the one that pisses you off even more is you were playing man coverage, right, all day, pretty much. And on his second touchdown, McConkey, it looks like he just ran by what's his name? Jones.
Was Jonathan Jones? Yeah.
Jonathan Jones. He just runs right by him. Why? Because Jonathan Jones was covering him. McConkey was this guy set back, okay, on the outside. And basically the two receivers, McConkey and whoever the hell the other guy is, crossed. They were in a shallow crossing pattern. So what you do, the two defensive backs have to basically switch. I don't like calling it that, but they basically have to switch. It turns into like a catch man zone. So now you're not taking your man in front of you anymore. You're taking the first person to come into your outside zone would be Jonathan Jones and whoever the hell the D-back was on the inside. Whoever flashes first, catch man, meaning catch you right into your zone, you take a man-to-man. So they would have switched, and whoever the defensive back on the inside would have been running with McConkey, no problem. They didn't do it. You know, it's like you hit your fist, we call it a banjo, you know, but that's simple, Mark. Simple stuff.
Chris,
and they just can't execute it. They don't do it.
It's when I saw that, and then they did it with three receivers on the same side.
Yeah.
And Chris, it's just I don't understand.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Basic.
It's so bad. And then like
I don't know if people realize, Chris, how bad it is.
We run that high school. I mean, as soon as you see the bunch, you stagger the looks. You take your corner and you put them up a little closer. You pick the safety a little so they're not running into each other. So the alignment, whatever. It was bad. And
Chris,
and I don't know. So I don't know if it's an issue between Monday and Saturday,
I don't know.
or it's certainly game day. They can't adjust. But I don't know what the hell's going on between Monday and Saturday, Mark, in this building. So we know the coaching sucks. I mean, it just sucks.
Chris,
Okay.
my son went to the game Saturday.
Yeah.
And he texted me and he said, unless you're watching this live,
Yeah.
you have no idea how bad this team is. He said it's bad.
Yeah.
Like he equated it, Chris, to like Georgia playing URI. That's what he equated it to. He said it's like Georgia's playing URI. That's what this is like out here. As he's watching the game evolve. That's what a mismatch it was, Chris. And I don't think the Chargers are that good. I mean, they're well coached. They have a system, yes. But the Chargers aren't a Super Bowl contender.
No, and I keep listening to them. I keep listening to people say, "Oh, okay." And when we get to ownership, we could talk a little more. But Greg Bedard, who we have respect for, but when he says things like, "We never thought he would see Spanos out in the Chargers outclassing the Crafts," okay, this is what I've been hearing about. They're good owners, but lately they're just they're getting outclassed by places like the Chargers. We should be building an offense from the outside in. And when we get in the next segment, I want to talk about that a little bit. When we talk about the GM and stuff. But as far as the coaching goes, okay, Mark. So we know they stink. Okay, we know they stink. And there's so many reasons in this game to say they do. But what about? Is it an all or nothing thing? Like, in other words, can you keep Mayo and replace just pieces?
You can.
And I'm asking you, but I know the answer.
Yeah, you know my answer. Listen, I'm going to stay calm. Listen, it's New Year's. New Year. I'm going to stay calm. Listen. So, first of all, Chris, if you went that route, if I'm the owner and I go that route, I'm going to give Mayo another year. I'm going to try to support him with some veteran coaching, better coaching on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, bring in some different people to support and help and scheme. That's all well and good.
Yeah.
Who the hell's going to come here and coach on this team? First of all, he's got no connections to bring anybody in. So what, are you going to count on Elliot Wolf again to make phone calls to bring guys in that are connected, that he has some sort of a connection to? Right. Okay? Like, who's coming here? Because in actuality, Chris, if Mayo comes back next year, in my opinion, he'd basically be a lame duck coach, because if you don't win next year, now you have to fire him, because you can't waste any more time with May if Mayo's not the guy. So who's going to come here and coach with him? You're going to get more stiffs. You're going to bring another group of stiffs in, cast-offs that nobody else wants, bring him in on cheap money and say, okay, now we're going to try this. Like,
meanwhile, you're wasting year 2 of May, year 3 of May.
You got to wipe the slate clean, admit it was a mistake. We think he's going to be a great coach at some point down the road. We're just going to move in a different direction right now. We wish him great success and luck. And then we can get into who we think can replace him. But I think you have to pull the trigger, Chris, especially when you hear what the players are saying. Like, I honestly think, Chris, he's kind of lost the locker room. Not kind of. I think he has.
Well, you don't have players saying that kind of stuff if you have. So, yeah, listen, to me, it's either all or nothing, because just to Mark's point, you're not going to piecemeal this. Nobody wants to come here. So if you decide to bring Mayo back, expect all of them to be back, because you're not going to get a GM that's going to come in here and say, you're not going to get a GM that says, oh, okay, I'm going to take this job, but you're telling me who my coach is? Oh, okay. No. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get a head, you're not going to get an offensive coordinator for all of Mark's points just now. So the bottom line is, if you don't clear all of this out right now, like we talked about, to finish with coaching, because we're going to go to break now. We're going to get to the owner and the GM in a second. But as far as the coaches go, he's not. That's it for Mayo. Like, in other words, I like him. He's a good guy. That's not the issue. But it's not a good guy league. Period. End of story. Go make your mistake somewhere else. And the
listen,
other problem, yeah,
no, go ahead.
finish the
But-
point. We're going to go to break. Go ahead.
And listen, Chris, they're going to get egg on their face. I get that. But you made this decision. You're going to have to put your big boy pants on, be professional owners, and say, hey, we made a mistake. He wasn't ready. We thought he was ready. We're going to go in a different direction, which means you may have to go get an experienced veteran coach. You may not be able to go get an offensive or defensive coordinator. You're going to have to get a coach who has experience to replace him. And that's how you wipe the egg off your face. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
And we're going to do that on the other side. But this portion of Weekly Rewind was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Hey, we're always the first pregame show for the Patriots game. But when the season ends, we don't end. We'll keep talking Patriots, and the new silly season will begin. So make sure you're tuning in on Sundays. When we come back, going to go more into the week in Weekly Rewind. No flipping.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. All right, Mark, let's continue on with this because this is the segment I'm going to get pissed off at. Everybody knows the coaching sucks. Talking about the owner, let's start with the owner. I want to talk owner, GM, maybe a little bit of the players. You know, it starts with the top, at the top. Okay? I told you Greg Bedard said about, Spanos, and he ever thought that Spanos would outclass the Crafts. Okay. How is it that they're just out of touch? Meaning they never had to do anything before. So they always had it run for them. They really didn't have to get involved in offense. They could just be upstairs touching their phone and doing the stuff they do up in the booth. And now all of a sudden they got to make decisions and they're just sucking at it. What is the situation with the owners? How much of a blame do they take on this? And then we'll hear from Bill.
Well, Chris, they have to take a lot of blame here. I mean, they screwed this whole process up. They promised this guy the job. They handpicked him. They didn't go through any sort of a real coaching search. They didn't interview any other candidates. They didn't even see what other coaches thought of how you run this system, what it would take to get back to a playoffs, to the Super Bowl. Like, they didn't even get to pick anybody else's brain through the interview process. You just went with a guy who's never done anything but worked in New England. Like, it was a huge mistake, Chris, to do what they did. And listen, you brought up the fact they've never had to do anything before. You inherited a team that had Bill Parcells as your coach. You hired Pete Carroll. Admittedly, he was young, wasn't maybe ready for what he did in Seattle just yet, but he still made the playoffs for you. It wasn't a total disgrace like Mayo is. Belichick became available. You moved on and went and got him. And then you didn't do anything for another 20 years. Like, so they've never had to do what other owners have done. Now they have to, Chris. And I don't think they know what they're doing.
No, and Mr. Kraft is, getting up there a little bit in age as far as, maybe his attention to detail. I mean, I'd like to see it put into Jonathan Kraft's hands because he seems like to be the one that's less worried about the touchy-feely, loyalty stuff, and let's get the job done. And speaking of the less touchy-feely, get the job done, let's hear from Bill Belichick.
Oh, you love
watch different teams, construct it differently. Washington, look, they were the second worst team in the league last year, and now they're in the playoffs. And so they had a plan. They stuck with it. Some things worked out, but, they got a lot better. You look at other teams like Chicago, like New England that weren't very good last year and arguably worse this year than they were last year. So, everybody's kind of got that same opportunity to improve, especially teams like Washington and New England that have, $100 million in cap space or whatever it is, and they're going to have a lot of it next year too. It's like, well, what's, where are we seeing the improvement? How are we seeing this work?
Thanks to you, Bill. We got lots of cap space. They didn't spend dust.
He had to throw that out there, didn't he?
Yeah, of course he did. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of these situations. The Crafts are in a spot right now they've never been in. they're in a position now that they have not been in since owning the team. They came in, like you said. I mean, Parcells was already here, getting their feet wet. They were just coming off the high after the Super Bowl in 96. They hired Carroll. Then they picked Belichick. They've never been in this spot. And this, in our history, is the most critical spot the New England Patriots have ever been in. This is the most critical moment right now. This is the biggest decision Bob Kraft has had to make, even bigger than the Brady one. Get rid of
Which
him
he screwed up
right now. Because if to me, you gotta clean it out, like you and I said. Gotta clean it out. But can they bring in, look, you and I talked about, we love Ben Johnson. Joe, how long have we been talking about this guy?
Oh my God, I didn't even know who the guy was, and I'm now hearing his name left and right for like a year and a half now.
So
Almost.
Detroit, and he'll bring with him the player personnel guy in Detroit next down on the list. That's who we want. But can they do that? Are they in a position to do that now?
No, because you just hired a first-year head coach. Didn't work. Now you're going to bring, no matter what Johnson's reputation is, Chris, I don't think you can bring in a first-year head coach coordinator who has no head coaching experience. No, I don't think you can.
Because it's going to take egg on the face. This is what, for them to wipe this out, they're going to have to admit they screwed up.
Yep.
They're going to have to pay, which is probably one.
Yeah.
They're going to have to pay because they're going to have to pay all these contracts out and then pay the new guys that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know if the Krafts are up to doing that, but if they want to save this franchise, they better be up to doing it, Mr. Kraft. Okay.
Well, Chris, the only chance you got of getting this right is by doing that, because by everything we've talked about this whole first half of the show, Chris, what other decision do you have with Mayo? I don't know what, like, it's week 8. You're going into week 18. Nothing we've talked about since training camp, Chris, has improved with him. You would think something would get better, whether it be situational football, something. Nothing has gotten better, Chris. He's still wasting timeouts because they're going to get delayed penalty calls on them. Like, I don't, like, nothing has improved. Nothing has shown any signs of getting better. His relationship with the players looks like it's gotten worse. The respect of the players.
Well, they have no problem calling them out. They don't have no problem saying changes need to be made.
So, Chris, I do think going into that Charger game, after the Buffalo game, you said to me, Mark, he just saved his job. And I thought, yeah, you're probably right. Not knowing that the Charger game would be such a debacle on your home field, where the fans are emptying out of the stadium in the third quarter, and they're chanting "Fire Mayo."
Okay, so and then this team's 9-31 in the last 40. Just so you know. Okay, I don't know if the Krafts are up to it. Okay, but I do know this. I do know that the guy picking players, okay, is not catching enough crap. This guy's in the witness protection program. This Elliott Wolf. Okay. And so we heard from Michael Holley with NBC Sports Boston after the game. Joe.
Today, I think this loss, believe it or not, I'm going to say this loss comes at the feet of Elliott Wolf and comes at the feet of ownership. This is why. Ladd McConkey, you traded away from him. Ladd McConkey has 2 touchdowns in this game. You want to talk about a coaching staff? Ted, the LA Chargers are led by Jim Harbaugh, high-profile coach. Jesse Mentor, defensive coordinator for the Chargers, national championship winning coach at Michigan. And you have Greg Roman, who is a big-time offensive coordinator in the National Football League. Now look at your coaching staff. So you haven't paid for high-profile coaches. You haven't brought in you haven't drafted high-profile talent, nor have you paid for high-profile talent. I think, Tom, the stark contrast between talent and replacement level talent stood out to me in this.
Yeah. Yep. Elliott Wolf is a joke. And Mark, they keep talking about, well, can we bring in a czar to be above him? Somebody, what are they listen, just this draft.
They just had that. You got rid of the guy. You fired Belichick.
Right. You had that guy.
You had him. Yeah. So why did we get rid of him?
I don't know what they're so loyal to this guy for. He stinks. I mean, if he's the guy that brought in free agents, let's look at what he did. What did he do? He brought in Okafor, who quit. He brought in Osborne, who's not on the team anymore. What else did he do?
He signed his own player.
Who?
Uche's not on the team. You re-signed Uche for a year. He's not on the team. You overpaid for Duggar. He's had a terrible year. Like
Tavai.
You re-signed Kendrick Bourne. Like, what do you need Kendrick Bourne for? Yeah, all these guys, Chris.
Stevenson, who fumbled the most fumbles in the AFC, I think. And the most egregious stack is Matt Groh, who's evidently the college guy. Okay? You're sitting there with the 34th pick in the draft, okay? Lad McConkey sitting there, who by the way, I wanted to break one of these TVs behind me when they made this trade, because I was on McConkey. I wanted him so bad, me and your son. They trade the pick so that they get the 37th pick overall and the 110th pick overall. Okay? So we give to them the 34th and the 137. We take 37 and 110. This is the exchange. Mm-hmm. Lad McConkey, okay, and still the cornerback who has 4 interceptions this year, by the way. We pick Polk and Baker. Polk, 12 receptions. Baker, 0 receptions. 0. And both of them run their mouth in the freaking social media. That's all if you don't know anything else, that's all you need to know. Elliot Wolf has to go. The whole thing has to go. Period. Listen, and that brings me to this pick coming up. I mean, we talked about Vrabel. I mean, Vrabel's the only guy you can bring in. Now, you're kind of backed into a corner because you need a guy that's going to set a culture that's done it before, like Mark said. But talking about this coming up, okay, with the first pick in the draft, the Patriots select. Now, we got the first pick, Mark.
Temporarily, we do until the game tomorrow.
So they come out and say, Alex Van Pelt, that stooge, comes out and says, Drake May's going to play. He's healthy. He's going to play. We're going to play all our starters. We're trying to win the game. What do you make of that?
Listen, that's the sign, Chris, of a guy who doesn't know what he's doing. He has no control of anything, Chris. Listen, they said, well, I heard in the media this week, well, how do you tell the locker room that you're going to sit Drake May, but you guys got to play, but we're going to sit him even though he's healthy? Like, how do you sell that? How do you sell that to your players? What? They stink. They stink. You said, Chris, you'd have no trouble getting in front of that locker room and saying, listen, he's the best goddamn player I got on the roster, so he's great. I don't want to get him injured. The rest of you guys are playing for your jobs because you stink. You said you would have no trouble telling them that.
No problem.
Because at this point, who do you want back? Other than Bondmore, Gonzalez, okay, obviously May, who else on the roster do you want back?
Maybe
anybody?
Keon White. And listen, I don't have a problem with Keon White said. I don't care. And listen, I don't care. Here's a guy who wants to come off the edge, wants to get the quarterbacks, wants to freaking play and win. I have no problem with that because he's dead on accurate. There's nobody. I went through the list today.
Who else on the roster do you
want?
want?
No one. Maybe a Winu. Maybe. Nobody else. No one. And so, yeah, you're right. I that whole idea of what kind of message are you sending to the players on this team?
I don't care.
The message I'm sending to these players is you stink. You stink. You're the reason why. You're one of the reasons why we're in the position we're in right now. Okay? So I got to feel bad for you now? I have to sell you on something? No, you got to sell me that you even belong here anymore. That's what you should be worried about. That's number one. Number two, this whole notion of we don't want to have a losing culture. We don't want to be a team that tanks because we don't want the culture to show. We want to be a loser franchise. Mark.
Chris, what could you repeat what you said their record was the last 3 seasons?
9-31.
You're already a losing franchise. You're a losing franchise after your last 40 games. What setting? What culture? The culture's been set. Look at the goddamn mirror. The culture's been set. You're a losing franchise. That's it. You're becoming the Cleveland Browns. You said it. You said it in the summer. They're going to become the Cleveland Browns when they hired Mayo and Wolf.
That's right. So, in other words, it isn't like we're saying tank for the last 4 games.
No.
The culture's already been set. Losing this game is not going to send a message through the NFL that says the Patriots just are losers. You're already losers, like Mark
You're
said.
already losers.
You're not sending that kind of message. What you're doing is you're sending the message saying that we're smart, organizational people that understand that having the first pick in the draft, it's not like the 3rd or 4th pick. The first pick in the draft means you control the draft board. You control it. Okay?
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. When May took that hit against the Chargers on last week, he goes to the locker room to get checked out. If Belichick was on that sideline, there was absolutely no way he was letting the franchise quarterback come back out on a losing team and go back on that field. He would have said, "Yeah, put him on the bench."
What's over? Done. You're done for the year.
Done for the day. Well, at the very least, you're done for the day. He would have said he's not coming back in, and he would have let whoever was out there play, and that would have been the end of it. And yeah, you're right. He probably would. He would have said, "Nah, he's in protocol." He would have made it up. Even Belichick would have made it up. Yeah,
whatever. We don't want to hurt his head anymore.
And May couldn't have said, "I'm not in protocol," because he couldn't speak. He would have said, "You're not. He's in. We can't talk about injuries." He'd say, he'd come up with one of these lines.
You had the perfect excuse. You had the perfect excuse to not play this kid. Once again, the first pick it's the most important damn thing. And by the way, even if you win this game, what the hell do you gain from it?
Okay, so you drop to like 4th in the draft. So you lose like 3 or 4 positions if you win the game. What good is that?
What? So people can say you beat a Buffalo team that played nobody?
They played nobody. Because if Buffalo played their starters, you'd get beat and you'd get slapped around.
So you gain nothing from it. They're screwing this thing up from this moment, Mark. We got to get to Catone's comments. But we're screwing this thing up from right now. Putting these guys on the field, you got to lose this game, period. That's it. End of story. You need the 1st-round pick. Mark, they all got to go.
You need it. You need it. You got to have the number 1 pick in the draft. And now you can wheel and deal because now you're coming from a position of strength. But you still got but Chris, we're going to allow Wolf and Grow to make the decisions for that 1st-round pick?
That's a different issue.
Sorry, for the number 1 pick in the draft? I mean, not 1st round, number 1 pick in the draft?
That's a different issue. Losing the game is a different issue than that. Don't combine. I don't like people that are combining those. They're different issues. Lose the freaking game, clean out the house, and do what you got to do. I'm disgusted.
How about this? I think Buffalo's backups will beat you no matter who the hell you play. How's that? I'm going to go one step further.
I tend to agree with you on that. Weekly Rewind was presented by CORSO Law Group, CORSOLawGroup.com. Hey, we come back. He's pissed off. I'm pissed off. Let's see what the hell Catone's comments brings. Stick around.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. CORSO Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to CORSOLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help.
Time for Catone's comments!
Okay, so listen, I was fired up before I got on here. Chris told you at the beginning of the show that I was looking at the Pro Bowl selections. Listen, first of all, the Pro Bowl is a joke anyways. What's a flag football game now? I don't even know what the hell it is. I don't even think they play. It's a flag football game, the Pro Bowl. So they announced the Pro Bowl players for this year. Listen, I joke and I bust Chris up because Chris liked, at the time we took Christian Gonzalez, Chris liked the pick, whatever. I joke with him. But listen, the guy had a Pro Bowl season. You're going to tell me that they were how many? There were that many better corners in the AFC than him? Maybe, okay, you want to say maybe he wasn't the best, but he was a Pro Bowler. And I'm going to listen. So Derek Stingley Jr. from the Texans makes the Pro Bowl. Here's what I'm going to tell you about Derek Stingley Jr. I sat at Gillette and watched Keyshawn Butte beat him up the sideline one-on-one for a touchdown. That's all I needed to see of Derek Stingley Jr. because Keyshawn Butte stinks. The whole receiver room stinks. And he beat you one-on-one. So you're a Pro Bowl over Christian Gonzalez? What the hell is wrong with these people? Travis Kelce is on the Pro Bowl. What the hell did he do this year to deserve a Pro Bowl berth? Besides run around with the blonde from the Everest tour. What else did he do? I don't know what he did because he don't deserve to be in the Pro Bowl. I mean, why are you even announcing this? It's a joke. Like you're just, the NFL is a class organization. They know exactly what they're doing. They do things right to the T. Everything is done correctly. But this kind of makes them look like a joke. Right? You mean to tell me the Dallas Cowboys have 5 Pro Bowlers? Dallas Cowboys stink. How did they go? Other than Micah Parsons and C.D. Lamb, how could anybody else from that team be on the Pro Bowl? They got 5 Pro Bowlers? NFL, wake up. Forget the Pro Bowl. Don't even do it anymore. Don't call anybody Pro Bowlers. I mean, come on. You want to have the All-Pro team? That's different. You know, that's not that's a different selection, being an All-Pro and being a Pro Bowler. But the Pro Bowl has become a laughing stock. That's a joke. You're announcing Pro Bowl. The Baltimore Ravens have 9 Pro Bowlers. 9. If somebody could tell me who Patrick Ricard is, he's a Pro Bowler for the Baltimore Ravens. He's a fullback. Who there? Are you kidding me? Really? Come on. It's become a joke. The Pro Bowl's laughable. Forget the Pro Bowl. Forget Pro Bowlers. Make it the All-Pro team. That's the only thing that's picked. And those are the best of the best. I think it's done by, you know, this has become a joke. It makes the NFL look bad, Chris. It's a bad look. And I just had to bring it up because I had a different Catone's comment scheduled. But when I saw this, I got so aggravated. I mean, listen, I know the Patriots stink. But you're not going to tell me this kid Gonzalez isn't a Pro Bowler when you look around the guys they put on this team. I mean, that's a joke. You know, that's really a joke. And then Nico Collins, the wide receiver from the Texans, is on the team before Brian Thomas Jr. from Jacksonville. Are you Nico Collins? Are you kidding me? Really?
I've been waiting for that one right there. I was waiting for you.
Oh, I had to close with that. And then one last thing. Yeah. I got a New Year's resolution because you people, I want a New Year's resolution from you and from Chris. My New Year's resolution, I'm not going to talk above a whisper. That's my New Year's resolution. Boy.
Show.
And you're
That's
fired.
my New Year's resolution.
We have to find a new Catone if you can't talk about it.
There we go.
Joe, don't worry about it because last year I think he had a similar one.
Yeah.
And I don't think it lasted through this show.
Yeah. I think the word calm was involved. And
yeah, I'm going to be calm, collected. There's no chance. Listen, no, you're 100% right.
With Gonzalez, how's Gonzalez not on that team, Chris?
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, you know, you're talking about
player. If there's any player that you had to say, okay, who was the only good player on the Patriots this season, the entire season, and you had 5 to pick, you could probably only pick 2, and he's one of them, right?
Yeah.
But Chris, he locked
Brendan
down
Schooler. Brendan Schooler is the lone Pro Bowler from the Patriots.
But Chris, Gonzalez locked down every guy they put him on.
And he had to play a lot of good ones too.
He did.
I mean, go down the list of the guys he had to play. I mean, okay, Chase was the first game. I get it. He was hurt. Okay. But you had Hill to deal with and Waddle. And every time they played him on either one of those guys, they didn't make catches. So, I mean, and the list goes on. Yeah, Mark. Yeah, Derek Stingley. Okay. I mean, Denzel Ward, Marlon Humphrey.
Come on. There's no way, Chris. No way.
Listen, and I agree with you. Zay Flowers and Nico Collins and Jerry Jeudy. Those 3 guys over Brian Thomas Jr.? Yeah, I don't know. I don't agree with that at all. But you're right. It is a joke. Let me just say, while you were on your rant, since 2014, for the last 10 years, okay, where do you think the Patriots, as far as percentages of players, okay, let me do it. Draft picks of teams that became Pro Bowlers, the percentage of draft pick players that became Pro Bowlers, the number 1 team is, by the way, is the Detroit Lions at 19.8% of all the draft picks made the Pro Bowl.
Since when?
Since 2014. Where do the Patriots rank on that list, first of all? out of 32 teams.
31.
Okay. And what's the percentage you think?
5%.
Okay. Your New England Patriots, okay? Okay. Your New England Patriots are number 32.
Oh, 32.
At 3.3%.
Wow.
3.3% of draft picks made the Pro
And you
Bowl.
wonder why we're in the situation we're in.
And most of that bad number is from
That's
2019 on.
Yeah.
Because from
We
14
just
to
went bad.
18 wasn't bad.
No,
had
the
some
last
guys-
5 years, Chris, 6 years, something happened, and that's why we're in the situation we're in. We've had no accumulation of talent.
Yeah, they suck at drafting.
Yeah.
But think about the
Yeah,
wide
let me-
receivers they drafted, Mark.
Let me ask you.
You could have just used the draft book. You could have just opened up a magazine and drafted better wideouts.
Better wideouts. Listen, let me say this, because you and I have been watching the college playoffs. How many guys on the New England defense are from the SEC?
None.
Well, no, Anthony Jennings is only because
Alabama.
that's Belichick's friend.
Right.
Is Saban. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken him either. But there's nobody on this roster, Chris, from any of those teams.
Nope.
Actually, on both sides of the ball.
You have more
sides of the ball.
You have more guys from Division II schools on this team than you do SEC players. I watched Georgia, okay? Their linebackers were all over the field. Jelani Tavai couldn't play on that defense.
No, he wouldn't play.
He couldn't be a starter on that defense.
Nope, absolutely
And
not.
I'm saying it. That's right. And that clown wears the green dot. What am I saying here? Well, you could say guys like Jelani Tavai, if you're going to bench him to lose the game. I'm going to tell you suck. That's what I'm going to tell you. You stunk. And therefore, we need the first pick to replace all your asses. You know what I mean?
Why is it that the strategy to win is not talked about? Like, the strategy to win in this scenario is to say, hey, listen, to win, we need the first pick next year, because it allows us so many other different options. We can use it for something, trades, whatever it is. It's a valuable position.
Yeah,
it
is, Joe.
Like they should just put it on auto pick.
It's a method of organization. It's a strategy.
A strategy, right?
And you know what, Joe?
That.
You're right, though. It's almost like fantasy football. Put it on auto draft.
Put it on auto draft.
Yeah.
You're already in that mode. Mark, you're right. You're right. I'm glad you,
you know what really burned me up, Chris? Travis Kelce. He had a terrible year, Chris. Terrible.
The Swifties put him in.
They did. The Swifties put him in.
What a joke this has become.
Oh.
What a joke. Good stuff, Mark. Catone's comments was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Hey, make sure you tune in tomorrow. If you think we're pissed off now, wait till tomorrow. We'll be talking about the coaching and every other damn thing about this team leading up to that Buffalo game. But when we come back, we're going to talk B's and C's. No flipping.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. All right, let's talk Bruins. Let's talk Celtics, B's and C's. Joe?
Hit it! The Boston Celtics are the world champions, and they have shown the world how great a ball club they really are. Screenshot!
Okay, Mark. So they're in the middle, pretty much the middle of the season. All-Star games are coming up for these two leagues. And let's talk Bruins just a little bit first, okay? Because I also want to, in this segment, I also want to get to the college playoffs a little bit. I know you want to talk about that. So let's make sure we leave some time. Bruins are around 44 points or so. We record on Thursday, so they're playing now. they're sitting right around 5th, 6th, maybe 4 to 6 points out of the first place. So, I mean, they're right in there, but they're just not. They don't look like a playoff team.
No.
They don't feel like a playoff team. It's better under the new coach on the Sacco, but I just still see the same things. You know, why doesn't it feel like? I mean, they're close to everybody else, but why doesn't it feel like a good a playoff quality team?
Because Chris, so do you honestly think that they're going to be able to put up a fight when they get to the playoffs against Florida? Like, do you think that they're going to be able to play playoff hockey, go into the corners, get aggressive, protect the front of the net, get consistent goaltending? Like the things that we saw them not be able to do. Do you honestly think that they're going to the change in coaching with the talent they have? Do you honestly think that that's a playoff team just because they changed the coach? I think they're playing sounder hockey. I think they're playing more fundamentally. They're better. I think that they got a different type of an energy about them. I think they kind of gave up on that on the other previous coach.
Montgomery.
They kind of folded their tent for Montgomery. I think they're playing with enthusiasm. They're playing together. They're playing with, I'll give them that. And that's showing up on the ice. But do you honestly think when push comes to shove that they're going to be able to bang in a 7-game series against a team like Florida and get the goaltending? Is he the goalie to do it?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, if they're what are they, 5-4-1 going into
Chris,
this?
do you still think that do you think their first and second line is good enough?
No, I don't think they have enough scoring. Pasternak, I don't know if he's dealing with something. I don't know what his issue is. Again, I told you I would trade him.
Yeah.
At this point, no, I don't think they have enough scoring. I don't think they have enough defensive presence at the center position to get back in transition defense. I think we made a mistake with the goalie, with the money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, so even though they're sitting in the number 6 spot, they'll probably make the playoffs. I mean,
they'll make the playoffs. They'll be somewhere between 6 and 8.
They played Washington tough the other night, but it's going to be one of those seasons. They may make the playoffs. It's going to be a first-round bust. This thing's going to have to get broken down.
Chris, God forbid you drop down and you're going to play Florida in the opening round. You're going home immediately.
Yeah, I mean, if Florida ends up there, if it's Washington, Jersey, it doesn't matter, Mark. I mean, they're just not good enough. The thing's going to have to be blown up. It's going to have to be blown up. Now.
And I think they've been waiting to do that, Chris. After the record-breaking season when you get knocked out in the opening round, I think they've been waiting. They've been trying to piecemeal this together and squeak as much as they can out of guys like Marchand and Pasternak and Pasternak. And like, I think they tried to squeeze as much out of this team as they could to continue to be competitive and make it look like they're a cup contender. But you're right, Chris. I think you're going to have to break it down and say, okay, you know what? We may have to have a season where we're not making the playoffs, but it's going to have to be done to build this back up, I think.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Now, the Boston Celtics, okay? The one game I want to kind of highlight a little bit is that Indiana Pacer game at home, okay, where the game before that they played them, it was a home and home, and they just whipped their ass for them. Then they come home and they lose the game. And after the game, Joe Mazzulla, we heard from him, and this is what he had to say.
How can you guys generate offense when you're not hitting threes?
Yeah, again, I thought we drove and hit the paint. I mean, I would say there was probably situationally in the fourth quarter when we cut it to 5, there was probably 2 or 3 that I thought we could have got a better one on, but I thought we, drove the ball and the ball touched the paint, and I'd like to see where that was. So it's probably comes from turnovers and transition. But I thought we touched the paint a pretty decent amount and got kickouts, and if they're wide open, you got to shoot them. But, you can generate them from forcing more turnovers, getting out in transition, but you got to get stops to do that.
Didn't score in a 4-minute stretch of the fourth quarter after cutting it to 2. What happened there? And it just seemed like you guys were running out of gas in some of these games when you're trying to rally.
Yeah, like I said, I think there was in that stretch there was 2 shots that I thought we could have got better ones on, but I thought we just missed open shots. I thought we just missed them there, and then puts more pressure on your defense, and they took advantage of it on the offensive end.
Everything we start. I wanted to play that for a reason. You start talking about the paint, okay? And it always comes back to the 3-point shooting. You know when he says you get kickouts, you got to take those when they're open, and I think you can generate them from other.
Chris, didn't they hit 16 out of 54 3-pointers that night, or 53 3-pointers?
Yeah. So like in other words, we're talking about. He's asking you about other ways to score besides 3-point. You start talking about we're in the paint. We got in the paint. I don't know what the hell he's looking at, but we got in the paint. We got in the paint.
We got in the paint pretty good.
When there's open shots from the paint, you got to take them. Okay, I get that. But then he says, but you should be able to generate them other places. So he's still talking about the shooting on the outside.
Yeah, that's his game, Chris. That's his game. He will not give that up. And Chris, they don't have the inside presence. Porzingis hurts. And you and I were talking about this. You can't count on him being healthy in the stretch drive of the playoffs. So I think that's an area that's going to have to be addressed because Horford, as you mentioned the other day to me, Mark, he's showing his age. You know, he's missing some shots he used to make. And you know, so that's an area that might have to be addressed as well, Chris.
And I don't know how they do it. I know, you know, you can trade, you can make trades, you can get a big guy in here. It's not going to be a top. They can't deal with that financially, but you got to get something. You got to get somebody in here. You know, like you had, you know, like when you once had an Olenek, or you had somebody like that could come in here when you know Porzingis isn't going to be, and he can still give some rim protection, some presence underneath. Because here's what's happening now. You see the defenses have adjusted to them, and they're blitzing guys. Now, when Boston is moving the ball, when that ball's hopping around the perimeter, fine. You get a lot of open looks. But when they're stagnant and they're slow, and guys are blitzing out, that's when you start to see the turnovers. You start to see balls get kicked off legs. All this stuff starts to happen, Mark. And the one thing people aren't saying enough of, they're getting everybody's best every night.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's every team's final. That's every team's big game is when they play the Boston Celtics. Are they ready for that?
I thought at the beginning of the year they were, Chris, and you know, but listen, they did this last year, Chris, too. I mean, we may be overreacting.
They didn't lose this many at home.
No, they didn't lose this many at home. They've already lost 6 games at home. They only lost 4 all of last season, right? So, no, you're right. But they did do this last year, Chris, where you and I were questioning whether or not Mazzulla could win a championship with this style that he just keeps pushing, and lo and behold, they're going to win the championship. I think you got to figure out a way to manage Porzingis. I still don't think you can count on him being there for the whole stretch run of the playoffs. But if he's banged up right now, Chris, let him sit longer than he needs to. Let him sit a couple of months. Who cares? Say, oh, he's rehabbing. What does it matter? Because you know he's not going to be healthy. So the longer you can win and keep him on the bench, don't use him. Yeah. Get him ready for the stretch run. You know what you got. I mean, you know what your team is. You're probably not going to be able to bring anybody in unless you get a veteran who wants to come in for the veteran minimum.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know if they're good enough to flip a switch. We'll see if they are and good to adjust. But real quick now, Mark, talking about the college playoffs in the last minute or so we got, been pretty good so far. ASU, man.
Very good. Yeah, you had a play on ASU.
4,001.
Yeah, well. Unfortunately, listen, the coach blew that game, Chris, for ASU. My God, they should have won that game.
I was so well, you know
you they came from behind, and the coach made some bad decisions, not kicking field goals, and But listen,
is it going as you thought it would?
Yes, it is. The semifinals are set. Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, and I wanted Penn State because I'm, as a Notre Dame fan, that's who I wanted in the semis. We'll see if it bites me in the behind, but that's who I wanted because I think that's a good matchup for us. What do you say? Who do you think's going to the final?
It's going to be Ohio State, and probably Notre Dame if Notre Dame's defense is up to that challenge. Ohio State's going to be tough to beat.
They're going to be tough to beat. And
Notre Dame's coach is going to he'll get in the way.
Next week we'll be able to pick. Well, no, it won't be yet. It'll be the following week. We'll be able, but we will have a show on before the final is, I believe. But I think it's going to be Ohio State, Notre Dame too.
So we'll see what happens. Pay attention here. Stay tuned to it. Buck Corso and Catone was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, we're going to preview that final game of the season against the Buffalo Bills. And
we really have to.
Well, we're going to talk some coaching and some things in the GM room. And come back next weekend, noon Eastern. We're going to have the Pats season wrap up. So much more. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday. Happy New Year.
Now find Corso Catone on AM 790, The Score, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you podcast. Or subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch the chaos every Saturday at noon.